and that's okay. But the reality is, I feel like I wish there was more of a respect for people's positions, because even you know, the thought that like, oh, even I don't like what Nathan's been doing and shit like that. It's not what I'm saying at all. Like, I actually think the legal system in itself is working very well, and not much actually should change. It's like it's almost in a way where it can be manipulated heavily and make a lot of great roleplay. I really think it's like, you know, it might be a little easy for some people to get tucked into a certain position and stay there. But that's why I think, like, dude, I was talking. You've also got to remember, this isn't real life, so we can't say necessarily this is how the government will work. But it's like, I think realistically, based off law and what we've had for the last 10 years, what I'm saying makes sense. But what I think would be cool is we allow mayors and the council to be corrupt. In fact, we allow anybody to be corrupt. Okay. But we also allow anybody to be impeached by anybody. So I was thinking something like the council could vote to impeach somebody, but so could the people. So if the people wanted to vote somebody out at any point of anywhere, it doesn't matter where the fuck they are, they would have to raise $5 million and create the poll, essentially. And it would be like a voting process for XYZ. Obviously, we'd probably limit some roles that are like non-corrupt and, you know, make the world function, you know, at a base level, because there's still the Senate, right? So you're not necessarily going to be like, hey, Crane, you're fired. You know what I mean? Like, or I mean, unless we went to that route where it could work. But I think, like, for how it is, I think that's a really cool concept. But what would also be cool is the people could make their own votes on, for instance, Blaine County. Hey, we want the sheriff to have more control up there. And if there was enough of a vote from Blaine County residents themselves, then that's what would happen. And it could, anything could be opposed by the state or whatever, though, of course, because obviously, you know, people can meme and just be like, hey, I want to be able to eat everybody's balls on the weekend. And then I'd be like, you don't have to vote for that. It's okay. You know what I mean? So we'd have some like sort of boundaries to it, but I just think like the power dynamics being able to change on a much more player-oriented focus, while allowing some form of corruption, I think is cool, because what it opens up is like, hey, imagine this, right? Max is somewhat corrupt. We find some evidence and we're like, hey, this guy's fucking us over, bro. Let's raise $5 million and see if we can get him voted out. But Max also has access to a bank account that is the mayor's or the council's, and he could pay people off in certain ways. That's like, oh yeah, let me give you $300,000 for this event. You can keep half of it, type shit. You know what I mean? And then he could tell the police union to vote for XYZ and shit like that. I personally think like it opens up good possibilities for roleplay if there's an even balance of all sides. I mean, I can understand how there's hesitation, though. Don't get me wrong. But that's why I always, you know, it will imply that like the state itself or an upper authority being able to say that's too much, let's tone it back a bit, is a good thing. And at the end of the day, if it's a vote and the vote is stupid, we can just return the money and say, nah, it's not happening. That's too much. You know what I mean? Especially if it's a weak vote. So I feel like it's one of those situations where it's like naturally the state would look at any sort of legislations passed. Obviously, we give that respect to DOJ and council because it's roleplay. But if it was a vote by the people and it lasted a week, we would just look at the vote when it's created and be like, yeah, okay. Or, probably a bit much. And I mean, it's not ridiculous to think like that's absurd compared to like how some things do work in real life. So I think, I mean, by the way, these are just like ideas, by the way. This isn't something that's actually happening. But I was saying like the thought of shit like this, I feel like could create some cool shit though. So we'll see. I just gotta convince everybody, dude. That's all. I just got to convince everybody that I'm not retarded. It's fucking difficult, though. Very difficult. It's a very difficult thing for me. But, I mean, at the end of the day, listen, I think the more power we put in everybody's hands, the more fun it can be. I just didn't intro my shit for everybody, so. I'd be interested if, like, so what I also think would be sick, I mean, there's going to be doubts, like I said, but, like, I really think the sheriff being able to be more of the people person like the mayor and keeping the mayor as an overseer to their police department, kind of how it is actually cool as well. But also a people vote from the entire island could make a law that is like state or something like that, that's above them all, if it was authorized, of course. But I just imagine, like, you know, you'd still share, like, jurisdictions and all that sort of shit, but, like, what SFAM was saying with, like, where you could essentially say, hey, you can open carry up here, and you have that vibe, right? But, you know, if he did something like that, and you got caught open carrying, and then you were ever found up there again with a weapon, he could, like, banish you or some shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, some crazy shit. Like, actual consequence that isn't, hey, you're in jail for 6 months. It's like, if you come up here again, you know, you're banished. You won't be able to come back up here, and if you do, it's like, you know, fucking a day in jail if you get caught or some shit like that. Something, well, not a day, but, you know, something a little bit more wild on that side of things. And then the economy growth we could have in each section as well. I mean, we could, dude, there's a lot we could do with it. There's a lot we could do with it. Like forcing trade between communities rather than, you know, the moonshiners doing their own thing and XYZ doing their own thing. Like, if you live in this area, then you have access to these. If you live in this area, then you have access to these type shit. Just, well, not Wild West, no. Like, just pretty standard humanish laws. But open carry isn't that crazy, you know what I mean? But you got to remember, we've got to consider our state as something that is being rebuilt because it was in a complete state of failure. Like, it was dead. There was nothing. It was gone. People left this state. The entire thing. And I think what that would create is you having to nurture the people around you in your community who own houses there because they're the vote that counts. You know, if you're the sheriff, you want to make sure Paleto and Thingo are looked after. And then you could have like a shared pool of like funds and stuff like that, where you'd have to like fight over it and make sure you're doing right. I just don't know. The thing is, like, we would also need some. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it would work, but I just think like we should be more open to creativity and differences and matching powers that can alter things for the sake of roleplay and just cool shit happening. Honestly, how do you manage a split DOJ? The DOJ wouldn't have to split, I don't think. I feel like what the DOJ is not. The DOJ is law based, right? So legislation is somewhat different, but obviously making laws change could be pushed through that or something. I don't think the DOJ would have to change. I don't think it would have to change because DOJ they have like state licenses anyway, so they could do both sides. They could juror both sides. And they could still have the fact where they could be voted out anyway if they were to be corrupt on either section. So, I just think, dude, like we are holding ourselves back from creating long-term roleplay and effects in the world, or big decisions, for no reason, really. Just like I don't see the reason. I think people are worried about certain people in power, but what's more worrying is when certain people are in power and there's no contesting, right? And I think that's what is definitely the worst possibility. And the reality is, it's always going to be the thing because the mayor and the DOJ are technically tied together at this point with no way of impeachment. So just imagine Max gets out and then like fucking, you know, somebody's voted in and it's like purely I just want fucking XYZ. That's it. Nothing, you know, and he just fucking forces all this shit essentially. If he is liked by specific people, then he is good. And it's actually the same with Max, you know. Plus, we've also got to consider streamers. You know, as a streamer, then you got to worry about server owners. You know, there's always going to be this unnatural sway no matter what. And I feel like if we can make more of that sway be natural, then, you know, some cool shit could happen. I think some cool shit could happen anyway. We create those restrictions, and I don't think we need to, is what I'm saying. I just think if the people can vote to make new things happen as well, that's probably good enough. I don't think we necessarily need to force another county and the sheriff. Because if the people want that, they can just vote it, right? So I think as long as the people can make that vote, and even if that costs like $1 million or something for them to pass it forward, it's cool. I like the options. Even if it's a law that does make another county, you know, then we as the state would change the bill into a way that makes, you know, some sense. If it's a little too far-fetched, but, you know, we allow that sort of creation. That way, we've always got a flowing structure, I guess, to legal and world changes. Because imagine this as well, you know, what if some sheriff does get elected, or a mayor appoints himself as a commissioner, and there was actually an outburst big enough that they didn't want that. Or a certain gang is feeling like, hey, the council is fucking me over. What if they just get the people on their side and explain it to them and pay $1 million, all of them, and they can vote a specific thing? You know, like I feel like that is a much healthier way of allowing power structure and changes at a secondary level that isn't like, you know, forced necessarily. And nobody really loses anything if it doesn't happen, because we can just refund the money, you know what I mean? Because it's like, hey, that's too much, no. We can also dictate that based on, like, if it's LORE, law changing, and too weird. Well, I pay $1 million, so it's not spammed. Otherwise, the fucking civilian population could just fucking spam votes every week. It wouldn't be one person paying it. That's the thing. If you would have to get enough people to say, hey, this is a good idea. I'll put in like 50K, you know what I mean? So you can't just like make a vote because you feel like making a vote. You make a vote because it's like actually what the people want. It's got risk to it, instead of just like doing it because you can do it. You know what I mean? That way there's like a natural level to like risk reward in a situation like that, where it's like, you know, do I want to waste people's $1 million? Because if I do this and I guarantee it's going to change and then it doesn't change, my reputation's fucked. I feel like there's a lot of cool games like this, you know, the whole concept of games in which is like, you know, manipulation and promises, which is actually like usually fun games. Yeah, then it really is all about roleplay, I feel like, and how we as people want to shape the world, not one person's fucking view on it. Not even the server owner entirely, you know what I mean? So people can't just fucking say, the server owner's doing this, the DOJ leader's doing this. Bro, why don't you just get your fucking group then, at that point, to go and fucking pass the bill yourselves. Get $1 million and fucking vote it in, bitch. There's no excuses, right? Like, I feel like the value we create there is actually sick. What is that, a key tool? Oh, we got a red key card, baby. Finally, dude. We got one, dude. Oh, yeah. not too bad for the, like, 4th or 5th run, I guess. Told you, just one more. Just one more. That's all we needed. I never know. Don't even know if it's got to pay off the key, honestly. Where the fuck is the thing here I'm touching on? All right, listen, you know, despite what people will say, I very much like the idea of, like, player control as a mass. And I feel like it's very much, you know what, fuck that. I'll take the Ashy Ash. It's very much more like, you know, more immersive that way as well, no? Like, you know what I mean? Because it is actually the world that changes things. And if a bill is too far, we can just slightly modify it to something that we feel is realistic and sensible, and we're good. That way it's never really a no either. I mean, that is what RP is, in my opinion. Especially in a world that is like... As long as we, at the quote-unquote state or federal level... are willing to more be like DM and guide certain things within the lore of the world we create rather than what we think is right. You know what I mean? Like, if it's possible in the world and it's voted in, I feel like it should just happen. Like, I don't see why you wouldn't do that, because that is literally the essence of what I think roleplay is.